Hi, I'm Ben Carr with Halcyon, and we have in the seat today Gary Hayslip from SoftBank. Gary, thanks for being on the discussion today and having a frank talk. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so start off, Gary. You've been doing this for a little while. You've been hitting RSA for a little while, right? A lot of people know you. You're a recognized face out there. What's changed? Like, what's different with this year's RSA versus past? And then I guess from that, what's different in the security world right now? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it was funny. In fact, I've been talking to several of our peers over drinks just over the last night or two, and just I pretty much knew on Saturday at B-Sides this year was going to be different because it was just B-Sides was packed. There was just so many people there, and it was very, very dynamic. I mean, everybody was positive and it was upbeat, and the talks were really just crackling. And I was like, okay, yeah, RSA is going to be really, really cool. And then just kicking off, Sunday night, you're at a dinner, and all of a sudden I'm seeing CISOs that I haven't seen in years, people that I've just seen on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I kind of feel like this is almost like pre-COVID in a way, where the community really seems to be coming back, and it's time to go ahead and let's get back together, let's get back to business. Now, with that said, I mean, on the floor, it is interesting because I know about a dozen CISOs that are looking for jobs. Mm-hmm. There are security teams being laid off. This year seems to be a shopping year for a lot of the different larger companies that are continuing to build platforms. And they're snapping up smaller companies. You're starting to see more of that. I don't know, in a lot of ways, kind of accelerating. Mm-hmm. So you've got that kind of that soap opera story behind the scenes.
Sure.
That companies are being acquired, companies are moving around. But
well,
at the
No
same
Name just got acquired, right?
Yeah.
We just had Wiz get $1 billion in their latest round with a $12 billion valuation. I mean, pretty crazy, right?
And that's what I'm saying. It's just so you're starting to see some of that, which shows you that business is still going.
It is.
Especially in cyber. And then what's really interesting now is obviously with Gen AI, with AI being involved, and many of the products are saying they're AI capable, or we've been doing AI for years, but just different types, and which we expected, But what I'm finding interesting about it is that some of these platforms are already maturing, the use of it, and I have to admit, I mean, I've been really, really surprised at how it's being used, because I'm big into data privacy and the data protection and just the management of data. I mean, SoftBank, the investment side, we're 100% cloud. We've been cloud first for years. We've been doing zero trust since 2019. When you build the security stack for a cloud
Zero
first,
trust before zero trust was zero trust. Yeah.
But when you do that, your security stack really becomes endpoint focused. It becomes
100%.
data focused. It becomes identity and access focused, and so I'm excited because Gen AI is going to be tied into that. I'm looking to see security tools that are going to give me more visibility, more enforcement, more management of the data flows and what's going on the endpoints, and then like Halcyon. The ransomware piece, the elephant in the room. You're not getting away from that. That's a billions of dollar industry for.
Yeah, I think many startups in the security industry would like to have the revenue that some of these ransomware gangs have, right? I mean, it's a business. It's ransomware as a business, right? And I think people have to think about it as such to be effective in their treatment.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and that's how I explained it when we were talking to our executives doing our cyber awareness training and stuff, is don't think of ransomware as a one-off. Think of it as a business. It's basically an ecosystem of many organizations that are creating the code or creating the deploying it, and it's just you've got organizations that rent it, you got organizations that build it, you got organizations that deploy it and take a cutoff.
Yeah, you got the initial access brokers, the ransomware as a service, the people doing the crypto exchanges, right? And then we're seeing legitimate people who have ISPs now essentially renting the infrastructure out for all this stuff to happen on. So it's a cottage industry, right? That's billions of dollars.
Yeah, and it's and we worry about shadow IT, and you've got a whole other shadow cyber business that's going on here.
That's right.
And it's a lot of money, and and so I go ahead and I tell them, you're getting cyber insurance for the rainy day that we all know eventually companies have, because companies have incidents. The CISO and their team are building the stack and the processes and managing their teams and working internally with the business culture that they have, that go ahead and build resiliency so that even when you do have these incidents, you can absorb them and you can keep running, as an organization and be able to take care of your customers. But with that said, you've got to factor in ransomware. It's just going to be one of those issues that you're going to have to deal with. And my thing is that, the stack that you're building, the processes that you put in place, you need to have things that are solid for your team to be able to go ahead and use. So you just continue doing business. You don't shut down.
Yeah. We'll hold off for a second. We'll get that fixed, and then we'll jump back in. Jesus.
Hello.
Can I clean your room?
Tomorrow.
Today, no?
No, today.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Very nice today.
Oh, we gotta leave that in.
That's actually kind of funny.
Gotta leave that in.
Are we leaving it in there?
Hello,
All right.
Oh, gosh, there.
I'm your ransomware provider. Can I help you? That was pretty good.
I'm here for the crypto. All right. So Gary, as you mentioned, we were talking about ransomware. We're talking about how I think how CISOs deal with this. A lot of that's how you architect your team and you build that out right internally. And I think how you advise the e-staff and the board on how you're going to deal with these emerging threats. What's your advice on that? How do you work on effective teams to be able to deal with these emerging threats? And what's kind of changed in the way you look at the way you scale and build your teams for what the current threat landscape looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I sit there, I think about it right now. I've been building teams for about 25 years now. And more of it is, you have you got the technical skills that you're looking for, that you go ahead and a lot of them will be, towards the stack that you've put in place and where you think you're going to go in the next, 18 to 24 months, and then you also add in things like, they got to be comfortable, doing Python, being able to write code, because you got to be doing integrations and you're going to be working extensively with IT regardless. And so you've got to be comfortable, working with, technology teams like that, but, with other technology teams as well, and probably, with dev and product security as well. But I think, another piece, and this is the fun one when I actually talk with, people that I'm hiring or when I actually talk with, I get invited to come in and talk to, people that are doing college classes and they're looking to get into cyber or looking to get into technologies. I start talking to them about soft skills, and I explain to them. I said, there's a large portion of our job that is technology based, but when you really think about it, the carbon-based life forms, the employees that you're dealing with, are really going to be the hardest piece that you're going to be dealing with, and they're your customers, and you're going to be in a business culture. Hopefully it's one that's positive towards cyber so you can get things done and be very effective. A lot of times it's not, and it's because cybersecurity by its very nature, we create change. You can't do it that way anymore. You have to do it this way because, we've got a new policy, or you have to do it this way because now we're regulated, because we're now a publicly traded entity and we can no longer go ahead.
Or you're just introducing friction into the user experience, right? It's just it's a little more difficult to do. It's not the way you did it. It's human nature, right?
Well, I've been here for 15 years and I've been doing it like this.
That's the way we've always done it.
And you're just kind of like, okay, I got that. But, and they don't want to hear the but piece. They want to know, you're changing everything, and this, and everything was so easy before you guys came here.
So how do you change that? How do you overcome? How do you engage with the rest of the business to be a partner?
You got to be a good storyteller, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What I've done is, I've written about this as well, is the fact that, you can't run your security program, behind the scenes. You can't, the security program can't be, in a room and nobody knows who you are and they only bring you out if there's an incident or if there's an audit. you've got to be publicly available. People got to know who your team members are. They got to know what you're working on and why, and they got to know why it's valuable to the company and why should I care? What's in it for me? What's this going to do for me, kind of thing. And a lot of what it is, I mean, I was just talking with my staff, and we're arranging a brown bag, discussion in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be on, I do regular touch points on phishing and new things that we're seeing, and I'll actually use real emails that we've blocked so they can see what they look like and what they should watch for. But we're also going to do training on deepfake as well, because we're seeing stuff like that, and I want them to be aware that as the security companies innovate, the adversaries innovate as well. They're going to use AI just like we are. And so you've got to be aware of these things. You got to know what it looks like. And the reason I do it is that I want them to know who my staff are. I want them to be comfortable asking us questions. I want them to understand that, you can go ahead and make mistakes. It isn't going to be the end of the world, but talk to us. That's what we're here for. And then what I also do is I try to relate a lot of the discussions on security to what's happening at home, because many of us work from home as well. We're in the office 3 days a week, and we work from home 2 days a week. And so I talk about home environments. I talk about, what their children are doing, on social media, on, video game platforms, and to help them see that, a lot of the security things that I'm worried about and data privacy and data protection for the company also apply at home, and that they can use for their children and their
I
spouses.
think that helps bridge it back to the corporate side, right? So if you can educate the user base that there's a personal component of cyber, they start to tie that back and go, oh, now I'm getting it. Like, I understand the impact it can cause in my personal life. Now I understand the impact it can cause in corporate life. And so they become much more willing collaborators versus just, I get stuck having to do MFA, right? Well, what could that cause in your personal life if you get compromised?
And in fact, I tell this story, but it was like, at Weber, we were doing a big, project. We were doing ISO 27001, and the dev teams did not want to go ahead and play with us at all, because we were making changes. But when I started doing this visibility piece and started explaining to people what we were doing, and I broke down all of our projects so they could see what we're working on for the next 18 months and why, and who my team members were and who was focused on which pieces. And we became extremely visible in the organization. And we were asking questions, and we're doing the brown bag sessions. And then, one day, one of the executive assistants pulled me aside and was asking me a question about her son's PlayStation, that it had gotten infected because he had downloaded some stuff. And, and after, and I tried to help her, and I gave her some links and told her, because I'm a big gamer myself, and I wanted to go ahead and help out a fellow gamer. And
we'll need to switch gamer tags after this.
but it was like, what happened was afterwards, I was telling my team, I said, all right, we're being effective. And they're like, why? And I said, because she trusted me with something that's happening in her home.
Yeah.
And was willing to talk about it. And I said, when
That's
they
a
start,
win.
and when they start doing things like that and they're willing to talk to you, okay, I may not be changing all of the culture, but we're starting to be effective. We're starting to be included as part of the culture. And that's where you want to be. You want to build that trust.
Yeah, you have to build the relationships there.
Yeah, and I explained to my team too, I said that trust is a very limited currency. You only get so much of it with the board. You only get so much of it with the executive team and with the employees. So you've got to be careful with what you do and how you teach and how you work with them.
Yeah, that's a really good advice, I think. So stepping back, you kind of tripped into AI a little bit there. You talked about it earlier. And I think if there's any theme of RSA this year, it's probably AI, right? Like, everybody's doing stuff with AI. Oh, yeah. I see it as, when I look at vendors, it's been kind of a topic of discussion for a couple of years now, right? Yep. People have talked about AI and ML. I think there's different levels of AI, right? There's the larger, there's AI. There's generative AI as a subset, and then there's LLMs as a subset of generative AI, right? But everybody lumps it in as just, we're doing AI, so it's really cool. What's your actual thoughts on, where AI is being used right now? And I'll split it up into three things. First, companies actually using AI internally, and how are they securing it, right? AI that security vendors are using internally, is it real? Is it actually adding value? And then the AI from the threat side, like, what do you think the impact is going to be on the threat side?
From the threat side, I've noticed that my phishing emails are like perfect grammar now.
Gotten a lot better. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, like, oh, crap, now I can't go ahead and tell my people now to look for misspelling and everything because these things are going to be written like they're coming from a native speaker. And so I think, from a threat side, you're going to see that. It's not going to be sloppy anymore. It's going to be a lot more dialed in from an intelligence side towards the people that they're attacking. Now, within cyber, yeah, I mean, to me, I kind of look at there's two sides. There's the operational side, where CISOs tend to work, tend to play, tend to run their teams, tend to be protecting the business. And then there's the dev side, where people are developing LLMs or they're using them. They're developing products and they're tying AI into it. And what I'm starting to see is I've probably talked to about a half a dozen startups right now that are focused on both. Which I found really interesting was, hey, we're going to build a tool for Gen AI security, but we're only going to cover one side. And they're like, no, we're going to cover both. And across the board, all of them are actually looking at both, which I thought was smart. That now some of them are a lot more mature on the dev side than they are on the operational side. And some of them are doing it via API, or some of them are doing it via browser. There's different approaches. I'm looking at many of them because. As a CISO, I pretty much know I'm not stopping Gen AI in the business. It's, so many of those apps, they're being tied into, they're being tied into everything that the business is using to be innovative, to do business. So it isn't like you're going to be able to shut it down and say, no, we can't use any of this. Instead, you got to figure out how are we going to use it, manage it, how are we going to go ahead and train our staff? What should our policies be? How do we review new ones that are coming out? How do I scan so I'm aware of what's actually in my environment and how it's being used? I know the procurement side is, hey, are any of these licensed? Is this all free stuff? Who paid for this? Is this on a corporate credit card or a personal credit card?
Well, that we've always had that problem, right? Like, how many websites got stood up at GoDaddy that you had no insight of? How many applications in the cloud got stood up when they could do that? It's the old asset problem again, right? How do I track it? How do I know who owns it? And how do I secure it?
Yeah, and legal's going all into the data, where it's at, who it's being shared with, especially if you're an international company where you have data sovereignty issues and data privacy issues. And so, it's opened up a lot of questions. And then you're using tools that, hey, we're going to use this tool. It's really going to go ahead and help us with A, B, and C. Oh, by the way, though, it creates a data product that we've never had before, a meeting summary or whatever. And legal thinks that data may be material. Okay, how are we going to archive it? Well, the app doesn't really give us an archive capability. Oh, so you mean we're going to trust the user to actually give us a copy so we can archive it? Is that what you're saying? So this is a whole process that we got to do manually until eventually the company catches up and realizes, hey, we need to provide some type of GRC capability. We came up with this really great way to do stuff, but we didn't think about the other piece.
Yeah, we didn't think about the controls.
And that's the thing I'm seeing is that stuff is moving extremely fast.
So on your team, how are you handling this with AI? Are you thinking about like, hey, I need to go out and hire a specialist AI person from security?
No,
or are you thinking about up-level it internal team? Like, how are you growing that?
We're building it ourselves.
Okay.
We've already got policy in place. We've already been training staff. We're using, ChatGPT-4, so we've got our own box to be able to do things in. Two of my staff, we actually mind mapped. It was kind of cool. We actually built this whole mind map where we did all the risks and everything around Gen AI and the models. And so we had one whole side was that. And then the other whole side was use cases, was identifying use cases for the business and identifying use cases for the security team and cybersecurity. And then from that, we decided, okay, we're going to build two internal models. And we figured we were going to have one called, Sid the Cybercat. And Sid was Cyber Information Daily. Okay. And so it's Sid the Cybercat. It's a big old tomcat on a laptop, and it's really focused internally. Where I want to come in the morning and talk to Sid and say, hey, what's changed in my environment since last night? And it is tied into the stack and tied into the SIM, and it pulls things down and says, okay, here's anomaly since last night, or here's open Jira ticket since last night, or stuff like that. So it's going to be something internal, and it's very unique to the stack, and it's going to be operationally focused. And then the other one we have is we've got Milo, the cyber wolf mutt, and Milo is focused on pulling threat intel down and pulling things that are uniquely focused on our stack and our business. And so we've even, and so what we've done is we've got that, we've already mind mapped out, and now they're already building queries. We've got it, the team members have it, already have it set up in GitLab. They've got, they're writing a lot of the JSON queries and stuff, and we're teaching it, how to talk and how to ask and how to answer. But it's getting more interesting now because they're aware of each other. And so you can tell one GPT to go get answers from another GPT, and then the discussion is, okay, if it replies back, now is it allowed to go ahead and ask? So now we start having discussions about trust boundaries, where if internal, the two of them, I want them to talk to each other.
Sure.
But if I go ahead and I have the one that's doing the threat intel piece to go ahead and reach out external to pull data,
Probably the one that's sending data out.
I want it to be one way. I don't want it to be two way now. So we start having a lot of these discussions about, again, data flows again, and it's been ongoing. And my thing was that, we were told that we need to be forward, thinking from our founder, be looking at Gen AI and be actively using it. And so again, we're putting it in place, we're training employees, and I thought the best thing for my team was for us to actually build and use it and see the good, the bad, and the ugly about it. And it's been a really big training event, for them. They've loved it. We've been doing it for the last 4 months
I think that's
now.
a great example of being a partner to the business and getting out in front of it, where, when somebody's coming from the business saying, hey, we want to use this, you're actually aware of what they're talking about, and you're not trying to play catch up.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the IT team has built one that's that they call Ava, and she's tied into Jira and fun. Sometimes she's got an attitude, but we can, and so a lot of times mine will talk to Ava to be able to pull Jira information, and then I know legal has done one as well for reviewing stuff. And again, we're building these GPTs and we're learning as we go. And we've got a partnership with OpenAI to help do training for the staff, and we've just been and again, it's just been a big learning experience. And with that said, we're constantly looking at other tools, but now comes the cyber is cyber. You still got controls to manage, even though it's new technologies. It's not when you really look at the risks. And so now we're looking at it. And that's why I'm looking at startups, because I'm like, okay, we're using this stuff. It's it's in the business. They're being innovative. But I need to monitor. I need to make sure that we're following policy, that we're being, we're doing things the correct way with our data that we've specifically trained our employees for. And as everything, you got great new tools, great new technologies. They come out, and the GRC piece catches up, and that's where we're kind of at now. We're starting to see some startups that are actually building that, and it's mature and it's running, and it looks like it's about 90% effective. So that the data that you're looking at is real, that it is these things that are running within the org. So we're talking with companies, and we'll probably end up picking one to POC later this summer, so I can run it and just let it sit quietly, and we can watch and see what's in the environment, and see if these are tools that we think they are. But with the same thing, but as we're looking at that, the bigger platforms, Palo Alto is now digging deeper, and they're building out so that they're starting to provide those capabilities. Some of the new SaaS, tools like we're seeing with Grip and stuff like that, same thing. They're digging and getting into it. So I'm thinking even across the board, those companies that are established, it's the new part of, to me, it's just cyber's growing, and they're growing with it. And their platforms are now becoming more Gen AI capable.
There's always a lot of growth, right?
And then the bots piece, I'm expecting that, we're building these GPTs. It's kind of like bots to help the team internally. I think many of these larger platforms are going to be doing the same thing. SentinelOne just came out with Purple, which they've, which they're talking about, and it's all tied into the platform. It gives you really interesting information, and so that you're able to correlate across your endpoints. I think many of them are going to be doing the same thing. You're going to have these AI bots that'll give you data and help you be more interactive with your stack. but you still have to have the human element to be able to say, okay, hey, I don't think that's totally accurate, and I'm kind of excited to see it come, and we shall see how accurate it is, but so far I'm seeing some really good stuff.
There's a lot of potential, right? I guess. Where do you come out on the question of AI? Is it going to end everything, or is it going to be this great savior of everything? Like, how's that come out for you?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's going to be the great savior. I don't think it's like, we're all going to be laid off and we're just going to have, perpetual income and just at home, drinking Kool-Aid and eating pizza because the AI robots are going to run around and do everything. There's many of us like myself, I'd be bored. I want to do things. But I do think that there's going to be many use cases where it's going to help you be more effective. I don't think in cyber it's going to do away with jobs. I think it's going to help us do our jobs better. I think our jobs will shift. There won't be so much of people looking at logs to try to find minute things where it'll help you. It'll find those and kind of help prioritize them in groups. You'll still have to review and make decisions on things, but it'll provide you more data to where you can make it quickly and in real time. Those decisions. I do think there are some roles that will be probably heavily impacted. There'll probably be some jobs that will go away. Just because AI can do them more efficient, so I'm not saying there's not going to be any kind of an impact.
Sure.
But in the cyber community itself, I'm expecting shifts. I'm expecting changes, but I don't think, all of a sudden, the CISO and security team is going to be unemployed. At least not for the near future.
Yeah, I can't see it either. So I know, for those of you who don't know, Gary's an author, right? So what are you working on? Like, what should we look at? What do you, even if it's not something that you've got that you're in the midst of writing, like, what are you thinking about? What's coming up? What interests you?
We wrote the desk reference guides, for CISOs, and we've written the executive primer for the C-suite, because more of us now are getting involved with boards and working with executive teams, and we really wanted to help the executive teams understand how to work with us and what we do, and then I've written the primer for small businesses. The newer stuff that we're starting to get into now is we've recently published one on privacy. We're starting to get more into risk frameworks and the management of risk, because a lot of the risks are shifting with the newer technologies and stuff that are coming out. The vendor management piece is something that we'll be publishing soon that we're really looking forward to it. We've got about 5 co-authors, all of us kind of pulled together on that one. And then, like I said, there's a couple other books that are coming together as well. And then we've even with our the CISO Desk Reference Guide series, we went back and went through all of the chapters and updated everything last year. And we even included a chapter on emerging tech, and we talked about both quantum and AI. And I wrote a whole section on CISOs needing to be forward-thinking, looking 18 to 24 months out, and having their programs that they build be resilient enough to be able to shift the stack depending on threats and depending on new technologies that are coming out. You can't be, stuck.
You can't live in today, right? You got to live in what's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be thinking about what's coming. So yeah, it's I'm excited. We've had some really cool books that are coming out. There's a couple I can't talk about right now because we're in the middle of doing NDAs and putting things together. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We started, the original mission, the original purpose was to write these books for the community, to go ahead and have some type of an impact. We're not like making huge money on it or anything at all. It's more of just, of being able to write something that the community could use. And it's cool when I get people come up and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a CISO in Mumbai, and I've read this book, and I've used it for this, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, the material's great, and there's a lot of good value, so I always enjoy reading what you guys come out with. So,
and I appreciate it. We're, it's in multiple different languages now, 30-some different countries. They're all over the world now.
So you mentioned up front early in that last conversation, boards, right? Like CISOs and how they respond and react with boards. And I'm really interested in, will we see further participation from CISOs in boards, right? Security representation. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm a director on a couple of boards, and then I also advise several. I kind of look at it as that just being a CISO doesn't get you invited to the chamber.
Sure.
You have to do homework as well. There's professional certifications you can do. Like I went and did my MBA because I wanted to understand business more, just because I was working with a lot of startups and at the time when I was a CISO for the U.S. Navy for one of the commands down in San Diego, I was in a lot of executive meetings with admirals and senior executives, and honestly, they were speaking a language I didn't know. I'm like constantly looking up terms and trying to figure out what they were talking about, and I just realized, okay, yeah, this is extremely business related. I need to go ahead and so I did an executive MBA program over 2 years at San Diego State. Loved it, and spent a ton of time working with startups while I was doing it. And it's to me, it's paid dividends. I mean, I advise and work with executive teams now. I said I'm on boards now. And what I tell CISOs who are interested in it is, there are certain professional certs that are out there. You should look at them. They really help you understand the committees. They help you understand the purpose of the boards. The due care and different things that you have to worry about. The laws that are involved and how they can definitely bite you if you screw something up. From an ethics standpoint.
Yeah, I've heard from people when they actually dig into it and find out what's required, because it's not just, hey, I'm the security guy on the board, right? Some people say, yeah, I don't know that this is really for me, right?
Yeah. And I explained to them, I said, before board meetings, I get sent board packs and I'm reading through them and taking notes, and I'm ready for the meeting because, you're going to be questioned. In one of the boards, I'm on the compensation committee. They're setting comp for the CEO and for the executive team of that company. And there's a lot of homework around that, and where they're at and where they're saying they're going to be at in the next 6 to 12 months. It's.
We haven't had this at all, and now all of a sudden. What was that? No, next person. That. All right, let's. I was going to wrap anyway, so we'll cut.
Yeah, we're gonna clean that up, but wherever you guys left off,
Talking about boards.
Yeah. Do you want to? Are you good with anything? You want to come back to that to wrap up your thought on
What
that?
the hell was I saying? I forget. No, it's just.
Yeah, that was disturbing.
Yeah, but it was like I said. I get board decks sent to me. I go ahead and they're like homework. I read through them, take notes, I prep.
And you can't you're not sitting there just to answer cyber questions, right? Like if you think
no.
that, like you have no business on a board, like you're there to participate in the business. You should be asking intelligent questions when the sales side comes up, when business expansion comes up. Like you should be asking questions and be able to participate. Otherwise, you're not going to be relevant, and they're not going to ask you to sit on a board.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my NACD certification, and then my portfolio, I put on, I do cyber, but I also do risk, and I also do audit, and I also do M&A. I mean, these are all things that I've done throughout my career that have been all part of, my job as a CISO. So it's like I'm a business executive that understands technology very well.
Who also happens to do security.
Yeah.
Gary, I really want to thank you for coming on and talking with us today. It's been a great conversation, wonderful insights. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Like I said, thank you for having me. I mean, it's been, just being able to take a break for a little bit, from the floor. The RSA has just been crazy this year.
Well, it's always good to have a good conversation. I'm Ben Carr with Halcyon. Thanks for watching this episode, and have a great day.